Hello there, Trailblazers. Niyama Shang here, and I'm really excited to help you as you move forward on your outlier to Trailblazer journey today. Something that's been on my mind really has been this element of bringing out your difference in order to make a difference. I've had a really wonderful conversation earlier today with someone who just sees the world differently. And as we were talking, there was a natural progression, and the progression kind of happens fairly often when I first start talking to different outliers. And the progression was she shared a lot of things that she wanted to do, and her natural path, the linear path, the incremental path to success. And then at the very, very end, she like sneaked in like, and then after all that, what I really want to be doing is, and all of a sudden she lit up. Her eyes started glowing, and like the energy like just completely changed. And it was really interesting because I get the chance to talk to people all day, and I felt myself literally move in my seat. My energy completely shifted, and I went and was being pulled into that conversation because here was a person who knew what she was about. He was a person who really like, this is where one of her passions just lit up, and she brought it out to life. And the pattern goes that which we really, really, really want is put aside. That which we really, really, really want can't be attained until we go through all the rest of the processes. I'm standing here as someone who's offering you some space on that. I used to work as an actuary at one of the largest and consulting companies on the planet, you know, and while I was there, I got a chance to start working with other people who wanted to become actuaries. And as we were going through that process, as I was working with them and coaching them individually and in groups, one of the things, there was a massive insight that came to me one day. It was, I only kind of like the job that I'm doing, but for the people that I'm serving right now, if they had the chance to spend even one day doing what I'm doing, it would be a game changer for them. And here I am sitting in their seat. And the thing that was really, really interesting to me was that at the time I wanted to go and work in a tech company. And it was like, I'm over here sitting in this actuary's position at a top four consulting company. And there's someone else who's sitting in a learning and development seat over in a tech company who is like, I would give anything to go and be an actuary. And if I could do it in a top four consulting company, I would love that. And here we are, both two people sitting in each other's seats, each of us thinking that we had to do more than is actually available. When I was ready to leave the job as an actuary, it took me 2 months to get a job working in learning and development as in a tech company. It's like, and honestly, the path that it should have taken, the traditional path, would have been 2 years working in industry as in just in their HR department, and then moving into learning and development after another 2 years, and a path, and then being able to explore going from learning and development into tech. A path that was supposed to take 4 years, I did in 2 months. And it's because of this element here of actually going for what we really, really, really want. You are watching this right now and get a chance to experience this because I'm tired of not doing what I really want. And what I want is to connect with some of the coolest people that I know. What I want is to find the outliers of outliers, the trailblazers of trailblazers, and to really share and elevate and serve them as members of our wonderful community. Today, we have the opportunity to meet another member of our community. Laurence, I'm really thrilled to be able to serve you in today's conversation here. What I'm going to do here is really bring you on, and I think the way I'll do it is by sharing who you've been to me, and giving us a chance to really explore that a bit.
Looking
So,
forward to
Laurence,
it,
like,
Niyama.
yes, absolutely. Like, this is who you are to me. We met actually just a few months ago, And what I get about you is that you're a person who exudes care and service for others. You're someone who, without even trying, continues to bring not just your experience and not just your skill set, but your heart and soul into really being there for others. I had an opportunity to sit at a table with you where we got a chance to mastermind as a group in these speed sessions. And I'll be honest, my expectations of speed sessions, I was like, this is not going to be useful. And you blew me away with how you showed up in that conversation. You blew me away with the way that you asked thoughtful questions of other people at the table and really served them to the place where we left there knowing that we wanted to continue the relationship. It was a profound experience and it happened in just a few minutes. That's who you are to me. And you are someone who honestly I just feel really honored to be able to continue to serve and to continue to help bring out more of who you are into your everyday work so that other people get a chance to experience all of you and the
Oh
benefit
man,
that comes along with it.
thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's wonderful to hear this, and likewise, honestly, because I've never been met before. Like I've been met by you. It's amazing, wonderful experience. I'm looking forward to this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like let's talk about how we met because like it's really interesting. The reason you were met that way by me was because of how you showed up. I tend to find and I find people who are playing the game, people who are willing to be themselves or people who are willing to be in service of others, I really show up for them. And so you basically opened the door here. So why don't we talk a little bit here? We just met a few months ago. Um let's talk about like how we met and what you were doing there. I love to give people a chance to see what your outer journey looks
Mm-hmm.
like at this point, and then we'll spend some more time focusing on your inner journey to help you go from there.
Okay, cool. Um, well, let's see. Just for everybody not in the know, my name is Lawrence, and my day job is agile management consultant. I actually kind of love that job, so I'm not stuck and feeling bad about that. But I'm also a graphic facilitator. That means that I make boring business notes fun. That's by night, right? So it's the superhero syndrome right there. By day, I am a management consultant, and by night, I transform into a graphic facilitator, making boring business notes fun. I, of course, weave that into each other because I've long since left the idea that I want something like work life balance. I tried it, it's not for me. I'm more into work life swirling. So I work when I want to, and I um, do awesome stuff when I want to, and I try to combine the two as much as possible because why wouldn't work be awesome? On that path, I went to Yourpreneur Summit, and that's where I met Niyama. It's Chris Ducker's mastermind community meetup slash megalomaniac, incredibly big stage podium with lots of awesome speakers. And like all the guys are there and all the girls that have the kind of success that I crave. So I was there essentially to see and meet Hal Elrod, whose Miracle Morning I really appreciate and practice. And that alone was amazing. And instead of meeting Hal Elrod, I met Niyama, and that was even better.
I will
um,
take that and receive that there. There's an element here that I really appreciate about you, which is like you got yourself, even with all the things that are going on, you chose to be in that room there. It's um it's interesting to me because I ended up in that room because I had done some podcasts and doing some things in the past around that, but it had been a while, and I had gone on like a deep coaching journey, and I was like, I think it's time for me to come back out, And so I was surprised to see like how there and some of the other people there. I was like, oh, this is there are some names that are in this room, and I'm thrilled that we ended up at the same table here. Right? So I'm glad. Like, I would love to just. What I want to do is leave us time today to go ahead and
mhm.
just like spend some time in like in deep exploration and service of you. Um, I I find myself curious more about your story and such, and I'm going to trust that if there's anything else that needs to come out there, it will show up in our conversation. Right? Before we get there, is there anything else that you would like to say? Anything else that like feels like I don't want to rush straight into that, and I also want to make sure that I leave us some space to go. Actually, to be here goes what I don't want to say here. I don't know the powerful way of transitioning from the journey to the coaching, so I'm just going to do it as as I see fit.
Uh-huh.
That's the reality of the situation. I actually feel a lot lighter just like owning that here, but given that there, I do want to make sure that I'm not trying to rush through to get to that there. And I want to make sure I give you some space if there's anything else that comes to mind around like who you are from like the outer perspective, what most people, I think the thing is, what will most people see about you and think is actually you? Or what are some of the accomplishments that you have that like most people like, they're like, oh, okay, this is who he is from an external outer perspective.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I totally not focus on ever. So, but answering that question, I would probably say from the outside, I am a pretty successful Scrum trainer, um, international public speaker. I do a lot of high end consulting work with management teams. I love that work. I'm known for actually loving that work as well. I'm very passionate about it. And that translates to pretty deep relations, good conversations, and pretty effective engagements. Of course, I have my share of failures, which I try to reframe as much as possible as learning opportunities. Sometimes I fail miserably at that, and just it feels like a failure. And so I'm human, like most humans. And but from the outside, I think most people would think that I would consider myself to be really successful, and I don't. But that's
Yeah.
moving to the inside already.
Well, yeah, let's
Um,
yeah. Keep going if there's more that you need to share.
cool. So no, that's what I think from the outside people would say. So a lot of focus, a lot of professionalism, maybe a little bit overextended and too engaged. I think that taking that and moving it a little bit more to the inside, I think a lot of people would consider me to be pretty intense, and not always in a good way, right? Maybe a little bit too much in a lot of conversations. Um, and I am really. So that's actually one of the things that made our meeting so wonderful because I essentially looked into a mirror, which is weird because I hardly ever have that exact experience. Like, this guy is like me on steroids. This is interesting because you were even more intense when I met you.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Mm-hmm.
was, to me, that was extremely refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it like honestly, I feel like that's where I really appreciate you bringing that in. I'm happy we got to this point because I think that's where I feel like I really met you. You know, like there was the external parts of what was going on there, but like I'm like here goes someone who approaches service at the same level of like dedication, like the person you had to be in order to ask the questions that you did, in order to listen in the way that you were. Like that's what really excited me.
Yeah.
That's where I connected with you there. Yeah. Yo, I'm intense AF as they say. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know
No,
if
yeah.
anyone says it, but I'm saying it. You know, I'm like as the kids say, I'm intense AF. You know,
For
and
sure
it's
you are.
yeah, and it's the reason why we're talking. You know, and
Hmm.
I think that's one of the things that's really important around from our outlier to trailblazer journey. We had a conversation, and I actually went and I captured the language, you know, of that, and I've been reading it and kind of and taking it in because in our last conversation that we had, you shared something with me that has profoundly shifted the way that I move. And for me, a profound shift can be about like a half a percentage point, right? But the
Hmm.
shift doesn't happen on the surface; it happens deep within my core. And you
So what
shared
was the
something,
shift?
yeah. Well, what you said to me was something along the lines of, oh, actually, to tell you the truth, this is awesome. So Lorenz was there when Outlier to Trailblazer became a thing. Like he was the first person to say it back to me. I said it out loud and he said it back to me. And other people at that table caught it, you know? Um, and it was, I asked him about it later on. I said, what outlier to trailblazer? I don't know what it means. Like, it's like, I don't know what it means. And yet he's like, it's like, but like, apparently it resonated, can you help me understand a little bit more about it? And we had someone else on the table who was just really adept at like capturing that moment too. So I was really supported by two people that I had come in a very short bit of time to really respect. And you said something to the line, to the effect of, when I heard outlier to trailblazer, and let me make sure I'm getting you right here. But when I heard that there, all of a sudden you made sense. All
Yes.
of a sudden you made sense. And the reason you made sense is like, aha, this is how he does it. He knows that he's different and he just owns it. He knows he's an outlier and he just owns it. That's why he makes sense. That's why he's in this room. That's why he's pushing, like, that's that's why the intensity can feel whatever it feels, and he just owns it.
And that to
And
me indeed was the main insight I had when meeting you, because I've been modulating the intensity out of fear of overdoing it. And here I met you sitting at that table, being not just yourself, but actually almost exaggerating it, like dialing it up, not going to 10, but to 12, because why not? So intense AF indeed, but in a beautiful way. So it's not like to be abrasive or anything like that. It was a wonderful experience. And it made me so jealous. Not in a, like, I don't want you to be that way kind of way, but in a, oh man, why hadn't I thought of that kind of way? Right. So it was, for me, it was an 80% shift, not a 1% one. Because after that table sitting, I had like, okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to totally own who I know I am. And that was an amazing experience. So I'm still very thankful to you for that, because that was, as much as you're saying, yeah, you were there when Outlier to Trailblazer, you were the first one to say that back to me. You were the first one to make me realize that I've always felt like an outlier, but I could reframe that as, no, 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 I'm not an outlier. I'm a trailblazer. And that feels better immediately. And it's the same thing, really. It's just the outlier who's become a trailblazer is an outlier who's owning that shit, right? I don't know if I can say those kinds of words in
you
this
can say
podcast.
whatever the hell you want to say over here. This
Okay,
is
good.
it's an interesting place. I'm like, be more you, and that comes, and with it, there's it's like
No,
it comes
because
with everything, right?
I have a little bit of a New York streak to me, and so
Yeah.
I have a hard time not
All
saying
right,
F.
one second. I'm gonna pause you real quick. No disclaimer needed. Be you. You're good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hmm.
Um, I'm gonna try to keep this clean though, because I think that's good for listeners, so that anyone can listen in and not have to dial out because of the language I use. But
Yeah.
normally,
So like so my ask of you here in this conversation is to not worry about anyone else listening, right?
cool,
And to let them remain in their power to choose how they want to experience this. On this podcast, people fucking curse. It happens, but it's not out of any other thing than the natural expression of themselves. And that's what I need to be able to play with, that natural expression of you, right? If we're really going to be able to have some things here. There might
cool,
be it's noted on the podcast that it's not like suitable for children in these specific ways, and there might be a time later on where I find a way to cut out some of that stuff, but let me worry about that in terms, like, and you just keep showing up here, because honestly, that
wonderful,
it's that level that I want. That's the only thing that would like really excite me, not the cussing, but the fact that you're not holding back.
cool. In that case, I won't be as mindful of it as I would normally be in a
Yeah,
podcast.
let that go. Just let it go.
Cool.
Yeah, so like, I mean, this is the real deal, right? This is what we're here for. I
Mm-hmm.
love to play this game here because honestly, we're both exploring. We're both learning more about what it is. And I'll be curious for you. You said that you had an you had an insight from seeing the way that I chose to be, and for you it was like level 12. For me, like, honestly, I was just like, I was warming up. So the like I'm like, you ain't seen nothing yet, my friend. The fact is, when I bring that intensity and there's a smile on my face, it's a whole new level. It's like Super Saiyan 4. So the I'll be curious, like, can you think of one area in your life that you brought that into? Maybe one specific instance of your life that you brought that insight or that area of like, I'm just going to own this about me here. And I'll be curious, like, you can either share the story around it. What I'm curious about is you talked about like some like the failures that come up. I'm curious about like, okay, you saw this, you're like, aha, it's about owning it. And you went out into the world and you said, I'm going to own it, and I'm curious about how it worked out for you. Great, bad, or neither. Like, I'm just
It
really curious about
worked
that.
way better than I thought possible. Like, really, it is the gift that keeps on giving, that insight. Because what happened to me was I went back with the insight of, so maybe if I reinterpret what some people have been saying to me in this way, I can actually make it work for me instead of being feeling bad about how I am and act and present myself in the world, and trying to change, actually change a different direction by being much more secure in the level of intensity I bring to most conversations, and especially the level of sensitivity, because that was my main insight. I saw you being very sensitive, but also being very forceful about it. And that was a combination I hadn't considered before. I've been told for like as long as I can remember, yeah, Lawrence, you're a little bit sensitive. You really need to grow a thicker skin. And I've been told that by people who I deeply respect and admire, also both personally and in business. So that's the thing. And when I was in university, which is like way back when, my friends used to call me, well, you're the guy that gives a fuck. And and they meant that kindly, but also like, yeah, I mean, you're like the bleeding heart, always helping out people. They also were a little bit freaked out about that, but because how could you do that? Just keep on giving. That's not possible. There has to be a logical stop to this. And I was never asking anything back because I don't, of course I want that. Who doesn't want that? But it's not why I'm doing it. It's a choice. And after talking to you, I discovered that I'd made that choice long ago. I was just not owning it. I was hiding the fact that that's how I choose to be. That's how I choose to act in the world. And by talking to you, I had like a really a sea level change in my life happen just in over the span of 1 hour. And you were like really cocky about this, and in the conversation said, I only have life-changing conversations. And I was like, oh my God, he's not actually saying this. But then we had a life-changing conversation, so I understood what you meant. And 1 hour later, I was ready to be tough, but in a totally different and unexpected way for me. So I'm tough about not being tough. So I um and actually thinking of our conversations and the way that you phrase it and being really inspired by the stuff that you do, for me it's I currently am actively practicing just being able to say to people when I talk to them that, well, they're probably not used to getting what I bring to the table, like the level of depth, the level of love, the level of curiosity, the level of genuineness. They're just not used to it. And I can, and that can shake them up. Some people, they might even start crying, which is okay because it's a release of emotion. And you'll notice that this is something that I almost stole verbatim of you because you say the same thing. And I was like, oh, that's wonderful. I want to be able to say that and actually mean it. So I just started saying it and actually mean it because that's how you practice those things. And that had an amazing effect. Even when I tell them that it may feel like I'm coming on to them because I have a lot of really meaningful conversations with women. And because I'm a man that tends to sometimes obfuscate matters a little. And that's okay because they're just not used to someone asking those kinds of questions with that level of real interest and depth. And that's normally associated with somebody coming on to you. And that's not what I'm doing. And they'll discover that later in the conversation. So, and just by saying that at some point in a conversation, that makes it okay for some reason. But it also makes it okay in the conversation to have, like with hard hitting managers who are like testosterone driven, swaying from the trees, gorillas, and they are really not used to talking about feelings. And when I sat across from one of those guys and just said, okay, so what made you most angry in the report I just wrote? He looked at me like flabbergasted. Like, did you just ask me about my feelings? But I just kept staring back. And then he just gave me an answer. So his whole management team looked at me like, how did you do that? And that was just by being very tough about the fact that I find emotional conversations to be much more important than anything else that we talk about. And I just say that literally. And that all comes from having one conversation with you, my friend. That is amazing. And that is indeed the gift for me that keeps on giving because I practiced that. And even as I practiced that, I realized I could have done that 10 years ago because I had all the insight right there. It just needed to be triggered. And sometimes all you need to get that, like to really realize that you already are the person that you want to be, it really helps if just somebody tells you that. Because that was really the main effect of meeting you at that table and experiencing, because you told me how you saw me interact with people. And for me, that was normal. That's what I do. I really never consider that that is anything special at all. Um, and apparently it is because, well, you mentioned it as something that was clearly different from how most people show up at those tables. And I was like, really? I had honestly not noticed that up until that point. Um, until you told me that you saw it that way. And I was like, oh, so that actually could be construed as something really good. So let's stop being someone who works a lot on changing the fact that I'm a bit of a soft, touchy, feely kind of person who can be hard at sometimes, but mostly hard towards myself, right? I'm very self critical. Um, I'm really getting after self improvement. And to me, it helps if I'm very honest with myself. So sometimes I'm just lazy and I call that laziness. I'm also fat and I just call that fat because I don't like to be like overweight or something not exactly what it is kind of thing, right? So and a lot of people consider that to be really harsh. And then they think, yeah, but you're so loving towards others. Why don't you love yourself more? And it always freaks me out because it's not that I don't love myself. It's I love myself enough to be really honest about everything. And that is sometimes very confusing. But I also love other people enough to be very honest to them about everything, including what I feel for them. And that freaks people out. It really does. Because most people do not talk about that stuff ever. And I find that amazing because every conversation I have with anyone, really anyone, even the people you would consider like to be tough as nails and they would never talk about feelings, all of us have feelings. And for me, that realization just makes my life better because just like you don't like to have non life changing conversations, I really don't like to do any non emotional work. So emotional work is for me the more important than discussing tools and techniques. I know a lot of tools and techniques. I'm actually pretty good at explaining them, but I can do them in 10 minutes. I like to spend the rest of the time just talking about, okay, so why do you want this? What makes you tick? What, and because that, I find that a much more interesting and rewarding conversation. And having talked to you, that's the sea change that has appeared in my life, really. So it's not just business wise, but on all levels of life. I moved into just owning that and really projecting that outward more. And in doing so, I have made great friends way faster than ever before. And here I was thinking that I am a little bit of a shy introvert, which I am. Just nobody notices anymore because I'm the shy introvert that meets you and becomes your best friend in 2 weeks. I was like, seriously, that's me too. That actually freaks me out at the moment, but it is what is happening right now. Just I met somebody for the first time maybe 3 weeks ago. It was a coaching conversation. I decided to steal some of what you do, actually practice it because it's not really stealing; it's being extremely inspired. And that conversation was so much more the conversation I like to have that I thought, okay, so he's really onto something. I must do more with this. So I did more with that. And then within 2 weeks, I started noticing that we might as well skip the whole coaching conversation thing because we'd become friends. And I've never become friends with somebody that fast. And that is all because I now choose to show up as who I am now, including all my insecurities, everything I'm working on, all the stuff that I'm struggling with, including really everything. And I'm just putting all that out there, talking about it, not being ashamed about it, or at least when I'm ashamed about it, telling that as well. And that makes me apparently so much more relatable than I ever feared possible, that I connect on a much deeper level, which is actually the thing I'm craving, that deep level of connection with people. And now I'm getting it, honestly, just by asking for it. Not literally, but by asking for it, by talking about that. And then people that don't like it, they run for the hills, and that's okay. Because the most important insight that you gave me at that table, that it's okay if people run for the hills, because I know I'm intense. It's not that I don't care. It's that I don't want to meet anyone who can't take this. Well, not that you don't want to meet anyone who can't take this, but you don't want to change yourself just for that. You want to meet the people who love that shit. And that's exactly what I've been wanting all the time, but have never been asking for it. And if you don't ask for it, you won't get it. And that for me was a very important insight. You just have to ask for it any way you know how.
Lawrence, I really appreciate you sharing this here because this is the journey. This is the journey. I really respect you as well. It's the reason, like, another reason why we're having this conversation. So you mentioned a few different words in here that I just want to like slow down because I think people sometimes see, again, we're really exploring the inner journey that goes along the outer journey, right? And it's like all of a sudden you're like, oh, one day he showed up and he just owns this stuff, right? And it's like, well, one, you've used the word practice very deliberately multiple times. And that is actually my word of 2020, practice, to really just to, because that's what it's about. It's never easy. And it's like, it's sweat inducing or like, breath, that first time I said to someone, my standard is that I have a life-changing conversation. And at this point in my life, I refuse to have anything less than that. Like, my fear was that they would consider me cocky. Now I'm like, that's fine. Like that you're like cocky's on like that's fine. I still know my standards,
It is
but
cocky though.
then I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
because to me it's like cocky is not an absolute thing, right? It's a relative. It might be cocky to you and to other people. They're like, cool, like that's the only game I want to play, so we're good. Like I'm just glad that you're just telling me what it is. So
Hmm.
there's I've been finding there's a lot of things that are actually that I thought were absolutes that are actually just really really relative, and it just depends on that person and what they're looking for and how much work they've done and what they feel to be okay or not. And that's their work, not my work. Right. But the aspect of that word practice is so important because it doesn't just happen overnight. It's like the insight can happen overnight. The integration takes practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Change
Mhm.
takes seconds, but working your way up to that change can take years,
And to
decades.
get it into your body, to get it into the place where you're not thinking, oh, I'm going to like the fact like it's this I have this framework. It's based on um the four stages of learning, right? And it's the stages are level one, unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. Level two is conscious incompetence. Oh no, I now know that I didn't know this. Level three being conscious competence. When I think about it, I can do it. And then level four is unconscious competence. I love to, and that's when you don't have to worry about it at all. It's just who you are. So when you saw me at that table, I had now gone through practiced enough that I was like at that unconscious level. I don't remember what I said. I don't remember how I showed up. Everything you're saying sounds exactly like like how it would be. I'm like, hey, I'm like, oh, I let them know about the life changing conversations. Cool. But it's really cool. Like, so that those four stages are based on like just learning principles. I can't remember whose model it is, but it's not mine. But I like to look at like how do you go from one level to the next. From level
Hmm.
one of unconscious incompetence to level two is all about discovery and awareness. Level two to
Yeah.
level three is all about experimentation, and level three to level four is about practice. And to really give yourself that opportunity. I love to look at um, There's a stage beyond level 4, which is level 5, which is when you're able to bring other people along the journey, right? And that, to me, I call leadership. My mentor, he
Yeah.
calls it he calls it mastery. And I think that there's an element of this that I want to call out too. You are experiencing, and I'm using some of your words and all that stuff there because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, and I'm a giant myself. And now you're experiencing it, and you're bringing it out into the world, and people are seeing how you're showing up, and it's giving them the opportunity to do something similar. So, like, just so you know, how you're being is also in and of itself wave inducing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So really quickly here, I just want to check in with you. It looks like there might be some things that you have to like organize on your end. Do you need some time to just address that, or are you good, able to be here? Because I want to move into something that's a little bit deeper, but I want to make sure
I'm
you
here.
also have space for
I'm
that.
here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Um,
It's the Dreyfus model, by the way.
oh, thank you. Thank you. Dreyfus model. There it is. Um, you also spoke about honesty. And then
Yes.
you also spoke like, and for me, that feels like everything you're doing is just being honest and not and letting that live. So let's do this here. I'm happy we got a chance to explore a bit of your journey and how you've seen like your transition and how you're going about it. We are real people. We are humans, and we are in conversation right now. We have about like 15 minutes right now. I'd love to spend that time just in pure service, knowing that even just going through this part of the journey with you has been in service of you. So I'm not like I'm just like we have 15 more minutes, and a lot can happen in that time. So given that there, if this was going to be a life changing conversation for you, and we were able to have and we were able to have speak to emotion on the level that is more intense than even you're used to, what would we need to talk about that would really serve you today?
Ooh, that's a tough question, Yama. Mm, let's see. Hmm. Well, one thing that sticks in my mind from our previous conversations is that from talking to you, I realized that I have a gift to a gift of being able to anticipate what other people's needs are, and that comes from essentially a survival skill that I picked up when I was young. And that's the bigger thing because being able to anticipate what other people's needs are, that's fine. That allows me to show up the way I do. And so that's a good thing mostly. But the negative part of that is I find it really hard to turn that on myself. And I get the sense that I need to be doing that because for me to show up the way I want to show up for other people, I really need to practice doing that for me as well. So honestly, I don't really know what my needs are. I spend way too little time doing that. So the obvious choice that I've already made and started executing on is to do more of that. But anything that can help me there would be life changing, seriously, because that to me is the lesson that is repeated until learned all my life, right? So, and I'm 46 now, so that's a while.
So let me ask you then, Lawrence, like, what do you need right now in this current moment? What is one thing that you need?
Ridiculously, it's the thing I know I already have, but I need permission. It is weird to say that out loud because I know that I don't need permission from anybody else, but apparently I do. So I just need permission to do that. That's what I'm looking for some reason. And I've already kind of given myself permission to spend time doing that, but not wholeheartedly. There's something holding me back there. And it's weird to sense that.
Yeah, where do you sense it? Where in your body? When you say sense, I'd like to think there's a
Really,
sensation.
right here where it says bazinga,
Yeah,
right
yeah,
there. That's where I
yeah.
feel it. Yeah.
Okay, let's play it this way. There's a lot of different ways I could go with this. Let's do me a favor. Close your eyes
Mm-hmm.
and just like breathe into that spot, that space where you're feeling it, right? And just ask that space there. What is it that it's trying to tell you? I see you smiling.
Yeah, yeah. I like visualizations like this. And for me, the first thing that popped up, like immediately when I closed my eyes and started really deeply breathing, it's okay, go. And then that started repeating itself. It's okay, go, with more exclamation marks.
It's
Very
okay.
cartoony, actually. So totally
Yeah.
fitting the Bazinga thing. And
Yes.
but yeah. So stupidly, I've just now given myself permission by getting permission from you to give myself permission, which is amazingly weird, but it works. Thank you. So I'm
Yeah.
happy now.
I'll take that. I think the thing about it here is this here. Like, actually, I need to check in before I talk about it from like what might have just happened. What is the permission that you needed to give yourself?
Weirdly, it is okay to be selfish. That's the permission I needed to give myself just then. It's okay to put myself first. And I've never thought that. Really, never. It's never okay to put myself first. So that's that's where I'm now, at exactly that junction. So I don't fully believe that yet, but I know that I'm going to fully believe that later. It's exactly on that like shifting point, tilting point. I'm on the edge there. So and
So
that's an emotional sensation.
yeah, let's go to something that you've called out, because I could go in here and try and like coach into like how do we help you get over that point, but that's not it. There would only be an intellectual sensation there, and we're talking about the emotional sensation. We need it. It's about that experience, right? So like it's okay to be selfish. You know the path. The path here is to practice it, to go out in the world and not practice it in the micro moments, in the moment where you're like where you would normally have no opinion. They say, what would you like here? You're like, it's all good, whatever it is for you. Actually, how does it show up? Like, let me ask you, like for you in the times that really were in the places where you would like really love to just be expressed, really love to just be selfish, how does it show up for you, such that you're not that? It might be like, how do you deflect it? How do you reflect it? How do you avoid those situations altogether? Like, I'm really curious about that.
Well, two really quick examples from very recent history. One way it shows up is in not being completely honest about what I really want out of fear of hurting someone because I know what they want. And the thing that I want is different from what they want. And I understand why they want what they want. And I feel for them and I empathize with that. And I know that it kind of sucks when somebody tells you no, or tells you otherwise. Like, oh, so that's just not what I want. I'm okay with doing what you want, but it's not what I want. And the thing is, that's exactly what I'm going to do. If I've decided to do that right now, it's something I've been putting off for a day, that I need to tell um, my wife in this case that the thing that she wants to do on Friday is just not what I want. And it's not a big thing, right? It's a small thing, but it's big to actually say in those words as opposed to sort of kind of being okay with it. No, it's either I'm totally not okay with it, but I'm okay with not being okay with it. It's a little bit weird to say like this, but that needs to be said because that is real honesty. And it's not bad if that hurts someone's feelings because then we just take it to the next level, become closer as opposed to fighting about that stuff. But also in my job, because that's the other example that popped to mind. And that's actually something that I realized, I've been practicing that a little this morning because I woke up too late because I was home at 1 last night. So it's a little bit late to be home from work. So I overslept naturally because normally I wake up at 5 a.m. That just didn't happen this night. So I woke up too late. And that meant that I could either race to the office and have this conversation there in a room that's not like perfect for these kinds of conversations, or I could stay home, send an email. Yeah, sorry guys, I need to call in at 10. Um, and I know this is bad because you wanted me there, but this is what works for me right now. Normally, I would never do that. Normally, I would have raced to the office, just made do, had this conversation at the wrong location essentially, and then show up for that meeting that will probably start late, not have everybody present anyway, and veer off course within 10 minutes, leaving me annoyed for actually putting that first over the thing I find much more important, which is this conversation with you. So being egoistical about that, I just prioritized what I um, really think is more important to me and in the end to everyone else, which is having this conversation and then dialing into the other one. It's a small thing, really, because I know most people think,
It's
seriously,
all
that's the
small
thing that
things.
freaks you
It's
out.
all
But
small things.
that for me is huge.
It like it really is like that small, and it's like, and it starts to like cascade. It becomes a practice. If you can't do the small things, then you're definitely not going to speak up for what you want on the things that really matter. You
Yes,
know,
exactly.
and like this is why when you use the word practice like deliberately, I was like, this is someone who understands what the actual journey from outlier to trailblazer is. It is a practice journey. I like to say I create a courage gym where people get a chance to come and do their reps, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something about like what you're saying there, like with these things where if you're willing to be selfish, it creates the opportunity for you all to be able to create something better than either opportunity or either option that was already on the table. And
Yeah.
what I get about you is that you're willing to engage in dialogue about this, to actually create what it is that you're looking for. And that's
Yeah.
like,
And also to reframe that selfishness, because I realize now that that's actually the wrong word. Because for me to actually show up the way I want to show up for others and really, really dial into what they need from me at that point in time, I must be able to tell them exactly what I need,
absolutely,
because that's the thing I need to teach people. Not just how easy in the end that is, but how wonderful, how amazing, how powerful, and how necessary.
absolutely, absolutely. It's this, there's just these small things. Like, I mean, even before we started, I was like, please be as selfish as possible. And it's very counterintuitive here, but I'm like, the more that you are selfish, the better off everyone else is going to be, because you are actually speaking to the things that are on their mind. You know, whether you call it selfish or you reframe it, like the fact that you're owning what it is that you want and you're engaging and you're creating space to actually have that also be a part of the game is just game changing. You know,
Yeah, plus
I
it
think that,
depends on what you need, right? So for me, the selfish need is true connection with others. So in the end, that'll be good for everyone
yeah.
to be better at that. That's that's why I need to be selfish at some times. And that's a practice thing to keep the balance right. That's what I'm currently practicing. And I realized I already started, even though I thought I hadn't
Yeah.
when I talked to you just now.
The game is already afoot. So let's do this
Exactly.
here. We're going to wrap up this conversation so you can
Mm-hmm.
make it into that next one there. My invitation to you as you do this here is, and you go through your practice, is one, oftentimes the things that we're really great at, we can't do to ourselves. I can see everyone else's unique strengths and gifts in places where they're not owning themselves. And I have to have a coach. I have masterminds. I'm constantly getting mirrors so that I can see myself again and I'm constantly changing and transforming and leveling up. So like I'm seeing myself on new levels on a regular basis. So it doesn't surprise me that that's not that you're like, I can't do it for myself. Makes total sense. It's why people get these outside help. It's why people come to you, because they're like, I'm in my business, but I don't get it. But you see it and you can help them see it. Right.
Yeah.
So that's one thing, just to give yourself a little bit of grace on that there. The second thing that I'm going to invite you to do is, as you're doing this practice, take note as you're doing this of when it is that you feel that you have to make the choice that is not the self-interested one, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See, like start to take a note of like, oh, when this happens, like I tend to acquiesce, or this is when I get quiet, or this is when I just say sure, and start to see the triggers. You may not see yourself doing it, but if you can start to see the triggers, which are typically external to you, you can slow down in that moment to say, this is a time for me to make a different choice, or this
Yeah.
is a time for me to get back into choice. It doesn't necessarily
Mm-hmm.
mean you only have to choose you, but sometimes choosing you might be exactly what someone else wants.
Yeah. I'm going to hunt for the habits that no longer serve me as good as they may have served me in the past, and do exactly that. try to
Yeah,
change them
and look for the
step
trigger
by step.
points of those
Yeah.
habits.
Yeah.
Like that's where we're like, what causes that? So,
Hmm.
Lawrence, let's end the conversation here. I want to just thank you for showing up as fully as you have throughout this conversation.
Thank
I'm
you,
looking
Niyama.
forward. Yeah, I am seriously looking forward to more conversations. You'll hear from me, and we'll just continue on from there. All right.
Awesome. Thank you very
All the
much.
best. Thank you. I'll talk
You
to you
too.
soon. Bye.
Wonderful. Bye.
Hey, Oniyama here. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet, and then go ahead and leave one of your insights from today's video in the comments below. If you're looking to take this deeper, you can go and watch another video, or you can go to niyama.com/tribe to get exclusive invitation to our tribe member only events. I'll see you soon.